And when I transitioned into coaching, I came into it with an understanding of a we ethic. That's where I was coming from. That's how I've been raised by the people who taught me about community and what it means to be a member of community. Have you ever walked into a new chapter of your life carrying everything from your old world, thinking what it had taught you about loyalty, about community, about showing up, and discovered that where you landed is a new land, a new planet, a completely different set of rules? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the Unlock Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Harris, and I am an integrative change coach, a life mastery consultant, and a former defense attorney. I'm a woman who's still learning that not everybody thinks like me. And today I'm inviting you to consider and join me in a walk that's kind of personal. Next week, I'm going to sit down and chat with an extraordinary woman, someone that I have the privilege of studying and admiring, Dr. Nell Irvin Painter. She's a historian, a professor emerita, author of some of the most important books in American history. And you know how I am. I love history. And you know what else, though? At 64 years old, she walked away from decades of prestige, a distinguished academic career, distinguished academic achievements, and enrolled in art school as an undergrad, not as a hobby, but as a calling, her vocation, her vocari. I'm going to talk to you with her and with you about a couple of her books, Old in Art School and I Just Keep Talking. I want you to understand how she kind of reached through the page and kind of grabbed me by the collar and helped me to process some stuff that I had been going through. Here's what I've been sitting with. I'm 64 years old. I left a 30-year career as a trial lawyer. I walked away from the courtroom and from the thing that I had poured decades of my life into and started coaching. And I thought I knew everything about what it was going to require of me. I did not. Here's what I did know how to do. I knew how to show up. And I thought that as I had shown up for so many others, I could expect others to show up for me. You know, as a lawyer, particularly as a public defender, you share everything: motion, strategy, emotional support, the weight of representing vulnerable people, some of the people that are often discarded by our society. You share those demands, you share the hurts and the pain of having the full weight of the state come down on you and your client. And the only thing standing between you and completely collapsing is the support of other people. You know me, I'm a preacher's kid, raised in the Black church, where theology isn't just Sunday morning. It's, Wednesday night prayer meeting. It's New Year's Eve watch meeting. And it's being there for your neighbor when their lights get cut off. The community shows up. I spent my young adult life as a community organizer, working in multi-ethnic political spaces where coalitions were built upon and across differences, because that's what the work required. And when I transitioned into coaching, I came into it with an understanding of a we ethic. That's where I was coming from. That's how I've been raised by the people who taught me about community and what it means to be a member of community. I assume that these people that I've been spending time with for the last 30 years of my life, women, other non-Black people, people of color, and other coaches and creatives, entrepreneurs were operating from the same covenant that I did, that we're all in this together. If I show up for you, you'll be there for me. That's the joy of it. And the truth is, that's not always the case. I got hurt more than once. More than once, people didn't show up for me. You know, I have these friends who have this work ethic, this support ethic that we've come to know in our little tiny community as the get on the plane energy. I got that from my friend Robert Hartwell. He talks about how he gets on the plane for his friends, for Alexandra or Rachel or for Susan, how he will go and see his godchildren and see them present their robotics at a science fair, or just be there when their friend can't like pick themselves up off the floor. Also, they are get on the plane people such that when they're having an event, an opening, a challenge that they are facing, they know that they don't have to do it alone. I love being part of a we. I have been part of a we for others for over 30 years. For people when they're starting their nonprofits, when people are facing mental health or physical health challenges. I have been there for people. And quite frankly, I just kind of thought that's how we do it. That's how life is done. But not everybody thinks like me. Not everybody thinks like you. And I had to come to terms with that. My mom always wanted me to be a little tougher. But the truth was, I was a little tenderoni. She encouraged me to get a thicker skin. I struggled with it. Now, I know that when people don't show up, they're not necessarily being malicious. I'm coming to understand that sometimes we run on a different ecosystem, an ecosystem with different rules, an ecosystem shaped by individual advancement or their own personal protection. And if you're honest, it's a real scarcity kind of mindset, a scarcity way of thinking that mutual aid can't be trusted and is not expected. But Dr. Painter, she helped me name what I was coming from, where I was coming from, what I was thinking. When I started reading Dr. Nell Irvin Painter, something clicked. She talked about Blackness as solidarity, a way of seeing yourself as fundamentally connected to other people, not as an isolated individual navigating the world all alone. She describes her own sense of identity rooted in community, in connectedness, in a sense of we. She also tells the truth about what happens when we meet a world built around me. Not everyone thinks like you. Not everyone is raised like you. And sometimes that can hurt. Her work centered on race and American history shows how institutions, even progressive institutions, are often built around individualistic, self-protective norms. Protect yourself, protect your comfort, protect your own position, protect your brand. These aren't values that we have when you're coming from a movement. They're not values that you typically find in the Black church. They're not the values that I was raised in public defense. I didn't start off in public defense. I actually started off as a private practitioner. And even there, defense attorneys had each other's back. I went into a larger firm the LA County firm, the biggest firm in the defense attorney firm in the entire world. I went there because I wanted connection. I wanted camaraderie. But, there's a dominating operating system here in this America, these United States. And here's where Dr. Painter's work gave me something that she didn't say my ethic was naive. She didn't say that my expectation for automatic reciprocity was wrong. She invited me as an author and me as a reader to start practicing discernment, to understand that I am still becoming. And there's a difference in believing in solidarity and assuming solidarity. I can still be a we person, but I have to allow myself to discover who these other people that I encounter are. Where are they coming from? What are their core values? You know, I I see connection everywhere. There is a meme going around talking about what happened a couple of years ago, known as the Alabama Brawl. And with the tip of a hat, a man was able to enlist assistance. No one had to have a meeting. No one had to get together and decide what we're going to do. He tipped his hat. He says, I'm under attack and I'm going to respond. And everybody in the area joined in to support him. That's the Alabama Brawl. Now, it's come to have a few memes, the folding chair, the Aquaman, but that's another thing that I love about being a member of the Black community, because how we got over is not only by solidarity. How we got over is by remembering our own humanity and bringing some humor to it. The other thing that I see out here in this world is this training for solidarity is so apparent that most people won't even understand it, but it's there. And I've heard people, women, say that they really admire Black women for the way that we're able to stick together, for the way that we have each other's back. I love that about being a woman. I particularly love it about being a Black woman. And for the most part, Black women have never disappointed me. But when I have assumed that I'm coming from a place of solidarity, from a political standpoint, from a woman of color standpoint, or from a feminist standpoint, I have been disappointed. And it took me some time to name it. You know, a few years ago, there was a show called Squid Games. It was really violent. And the original show from Korea was remade as a reality show, TV show. And ultimately, the winners would win millions of dollars. And only one person was going to win. And you go through a number of stages, and many people from the beginning form coalitions. They have meetings. They're meeting on the side. They're doing this and that to decide how they will move forward. And what I loved about watching this live action Squid Games that was not a drama, but was actually a reality TV show, what I loved about it was you never saw the Black women having a meeting. And yet they always worked as a unit for their collective good. And ultimately, it was, in fact, a Black woman who won the overall thing. So when I talk about where I'm coming from, it's because I've seen it over and over and over again. And, naming what I experienced when I experienced this disappointment was hard because I wasn't sure of what to call it. But I wasn't just confused, I was experiencing grief. When you leave your community of over 30 years, of community that's functioned like a family, and step into a whole new world of relationships that feel conditional, where some people believe that everything is transactional or context dependent, that feels like a loss. And that loss is real. But those people that were your work friends, I say this with love and without bitterness, they are exactly that, friends of that work. They're warm while you're there in the same building. They're generous while you're in the same season. But when your container shifts, well, then oftentimes the relationship is going to shift as well. It's very important not to focus on those who are not there for you and just train your eyes for those who are. That is why I practice gratitude. That is why I train my eyes to look for the good, because when you look, you will find it. And so Dr. Painter and her writing and her work has helped me to recalibrate, to adjust my expectations, to expect and match the reality that I'm seeing. It's not a lowering of standards. It's a new phase of wisdom. And that's what happens when you are a 64-year-old woman deciding for a life that you would absolutely love. You develop wisdom, and that wisdom is continually evolving and shaping. And you find out who are the people who are going to be with you. Now, Dr. Painter, she describes herself as coming from a good lefty family, raised in solidarity politics with a belief in collective responsibility. And she had to learn that institutions don't always live up to that. Institutions may leave you heartbroken. She had to figure out who her true comrades were, even when they thought that they were the kind of people who would be there when the pressure hit. It's only those who actually are that matter. And so we are going to be talking to Dr. Painter. And this is why I want you to come back next week, because Dr. Painter is going to talk about what it is to be a woman, 64 years old, to claim a whole new identity for herself. What she did was audacious. After decades of being one thing, one of the most respected historians of our time, after writing landmark books about Sojourner Truth, the history of white people, the soul of Black folk, she decided she's not done becoming. And she enrolled in art school at the age of 64, when her parents were obviously a big age, when she still was in a loving marriage and had to decide, but what do I want? Not because she had failed in scholarship, but there was more of her to discover. She had more self to express, more than just the scholarship. And it was an addition, it wasn't an instead of. She explored both and. I'm a historian, I am a scholar, and I can be an artist. Her memoir, Old in Art School, is one of the most honest, unflinching, sometimes funny and hilarious, devastating accounts of what it feels like to be a beginner again, to be evaluated, to be dismissed, to be the oldest person in the room, to be told explicitly and explicitly, you're not quite fitting in here. And she kept going anyway. She kept doing what she was doing anyway. Her mother also reinvented herself at a similar age. There's something about that intergenerational thread. Mothers pass on to their daughters that are not just warnings, they're permission slips, permission to become again, and to become yet once more. So I'm 64. Dr. Painter began her art school journey at 64. Her mother reinvented herself at a very similar age. And I don't believe that's a coincidence. It's an invitation. So here's what I want to leave you with here today. Get ready for next week's conversation. I want you to get ready and think about transition. Where are you right now? Is it a career change, a relationship change, a geographical change, an identity change? I want you to think about these things. One, what is your ethic? Where did you learn about relationship? What community made you, formed you? What does loyalty look like for you? What does it feel like in your bones? Because you're not wrong to carry that forward. You're not wrong to have expectations, but you might need to build a new ecosystem, one that's got a completely different code than what you had been operating with. And the gap is something that you're going to have to navigate. It's not evidence if something is broken in you. It just means you're growing in a new direction and you are building new bridges. Two, move from assuming that people are going to be a certain way. Allow yourself to continue to be a we person without assuming that everyone else is operating on the same wavelength, with the same commitment. Notice who they are. Notice who follows up. Notice who shows up. And notice who's there for you. Notice who stays when things get rough. That is your village. And finally, let yourself grieve. If you find yourself grieving your old world while you're building a new one, this transition is not just about adding. It's also about acknowledging you've experienced a loss. You are allowed to miss what used to be. You're allowed to feel the difference between what you expected and what you actually got. That grief is not a weakness. It's evidence that what you had was real. And by golly, it's evidence that you are growing and building something anew. So next week, Dr. Nell Irvin Painter, will join me here on Unlock Your Life. We're going to talk about Olden Art School. I just keep talking. We're going to talk about what it means to begin again at any age. And we're going to talk about identity, reinvention, and what she has learned about becoming fully, unapologetically, relentlessly herself. Until then, my challenge to you is think about the we you had been carrying and think about where you learned it and think about whether or not there's an ecosystem that still supports it or whether it's time for you to find your new people. Remember, it's your time to shine and you're ready for the next step. I'm Lori Harris, and I can't wait to see you next week. Take good care.